The trouble with tracking sex offenders has put a controversial plan before state lawmakers. Instead of GPS bracelets, convicts would be forced to have a device implanted. Come 4's Luke Ducey looked into whether the new devices will work. Luke?
Mary, the thinking is this. You can track someone on their phone. You can even track your own pet if you want to. So why not track sex offenders using a tiny radio chip?
Shannon Oakley was panicked.
Mom's here, like, oh, kids aren't going outside tonight.
This past April, in her Linwood neighborhood, David Torrance, a level 3 sex offender, ripped his criminal tracking device from his ankle and disappeared. Authorities had no idea where he was, but soon that might change. Instead of ankle bracelets like the one Torrance was wearing, sex offenders might have something like this implanted.
It'd be a little more difficult to take off.
Representative Marilyn Chase and a handful of state legislators are looking into radio chips that go under the skin. They will replace ankle bracelets. Some designs are no larger than a grain of rice. Police could then track an offender from a remote computer using the same technology used at the Narrows Bridge toll. But unlike a bracelet, a chip is virtually impossible to remove because it's surgically inserted.
Right now, we get a postcard at home every few weeks saying you got a sex offender moving into the neighborhood. But, you know, unless you know where they live and what they look like, how are you going to have protection?
If passed, House Bill 1142 would allow the state to hire the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs to see whether chip implants would work better. However, the Department of Corrections admits even with their current devices, ankle bracelets, well, they often lose the signal. They also say no tracking device prevents crime.
It certainly is not prevention. It certainly is not 100%.
And while there is, of course, an ethical debate over using these chips aren't new. They've been used to track criminals in the UK, even get this, school children in Japan. The bill here in our state is in committee. Live in the Satellite Center, Luke Ducey, Come 4 News, Dan back.
Well, President Obama taking on not only health care reform, but another controversial issue, immigration reform. And a key meeting at the White House tomorrow could be the first step toward that reform and for some very big changes for every American worker. Senators Chuck Schumer and Lindsey Graham, bipartisan that is, set to sit down with President Obama tomorrow, discussing plans for a national identification card. Now, this thing is meant to crack down on illegal workers, but our next guest says it could crack down on you and your privacy.
Good afternoon. Nice to be with you.
It's a great pleasure to have you. All right, so what's the problem with the national ID card? Because its proponents say this is it. This is the thing that's going to finally help us stop illegal immigrants from coming in here and taking jobs.
Well, we do have a problem with illegal immigration, but I would say the problems of every American citizen carrying their papers for wherever they go is a much worse problem than illegal immigration. Besides, you can take care of illegal immigration otherwise. But people over this decades now in this country, there have been some who have wanted this national ID card, and they're looking for every opportunity to do it. And this is it. I mean, who knows what will come of it. My guess is they'll probably have a GPS chip in there so that they can measure everybody, every instant, no matter where they go. So to me, it violates the whole principles of privacy, the principles of the Constitution, the principles of the Republic, and to me is a gross distortion of what we should be doing. It's part of an authoritarian society, and dictatorships have this, but not a republic.
Now, tell me how it's invasive, because what Schumer and Graham are proposing, according to what I read, is your ID card would have either your fingerprint, your thumbprint on there, or it would have a reading of the veins in the back of your hand, and you'd have to be scanned by your prospective employer, and that way, if it came up that you weren't legal, they would catch you. I'm sorry to interrupt. I would want to get your thoughts on this before I let you go. What do you think the government might do to us if we all had a national ID card?
Well, they would monitor everything that we do. And surveillance, the lack of privacy, it's always for good purposes. Everything is for good, and they're going to get rid of illegal immigration. They're going to find the criminals, but they're also going to monitor every single person, every single thing they do. It's sort of this idea of why not have cameras every place on every street corner, because we'll catch the bad guy. Well,
finally from us this evening, technology on the cutting edge. We were interested today to hear that more than 100 law enforcement officials in Mexico are having microchips implanted in their arms. The chips allow a person to be scanned, sort of like a cereal box at the supermarket checkout. In Mexico, this will be one more tool in the fight against crime. Here's ABC's John McKenzie.
You've seen it before, right out of Hollywood.
It's maybe a little uncomfortable.
A microchip inside the body. A hidden, high-tech identification tag.
They're the access codes to your job spot.
Now, Mexico's Attorney General and 160 of his deputies have had microchips implanted in their arms to control access to the country's new Criminal Investigation Center. It is to provide access, said the Attorney General, to the right people in exclusive areas where there is valuable, sensitive information. The microchip, the size of a grain of rice, is injected under the skin and gives off a low-frequency radio wave. A scanner reads each chip's identification number to verify an official's security clearance.
The microchip is tamper-proof, it's secure. No one can take your microchip and use it to their advantage to gain access to your facility.
The chip, developed by Applied Digital Solutions, is similar to those used in the U.S. to identify and return runaway dogs. In humans, it can have several uses.
Little stick.
The chips can also be programmed to carry medical information. The one in this patient details his blood type, allergies, and the fact he has Alzheimer's disease. The device is now awaiting approval from the Food and Drug Administration. Some researchers are developing microchips for use in the home, so that wearing one can turn on lights and open doors, hands-free. The next step, say researchers, is developing an implantable chip with a global positioning system to track people miles away, whether kidnapped or lost, just as cars can now be traced. A kind of LoJack for the body. John McKenzie, ABC News, New York.
That is our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. We hope you have a good evening. Good night.